Hello and welcome to the Bikes or Death podcast. My name is Patrick and I'm your host. This is the show that talks about bikepacking, adventuring, and the cool people who participate. Today's guest is an extra special one for me. He's a personal hero of mine. His name is Hal Russell. I think most people are probably familiar with him, but if you're not, let me tell you, he is currently riding the Tour Divide as I speak. He's 70 years old. He didn't even pick up mountain biking until he was 57. I'll let that just sink in for a second. This man is doing what men or women half his age aren't or can't or are not capable of doing. I mean, he's done more and seen more than I have for sure, and probably a lot of people listening. No offense. If you read anything about him, if you Google him and read an article, the words living legend are always associated with Hal Russell. He's known for his tenacity on a bike, but he's also known for his generosity and his kindness and his loving heart and his huge smile that is always on. For those reasons, he is a personal hero of mine. He's a person that I look up to and aspire to be. I love riding bikes and I love going out in the wilderness and I love participating in this community. It's a community that I've really grown fond of and I feel like I belong to, and I want to belong to it as long as I can. And I truly believe that if we use these bodies, that they will continue to give us the results that we put in. And he's just proof that that's true to me. You know, he's the guy that I point to and say, well, Hal's doing it. Now, Hal, you'll hear, is a modest and a humble man, and he will probably take offense to those words, but they ring true for so many people, myself included. I'm so grateful that somebody like him is out there. I'm grateful to have that inspiration in my life. I'm grateful that I can look up to him and aspire to be like him. And I don't know what else I can say. I just truly am profoundly happy that Hal is a part of this world and that he's out there doing what he's doing and he's inspiring so many people. You know, my goal going into this show was to shut up as much as I could and let him talk. He has a lifetime full of experiences and memories that he can share. And so I did my best to just kind of stay out of the way. And I hope that I did that. I was going to sit there for as long as he wanted to talk, you know? I mean, I was going to gobble up every single nugget that I could. And I feel like that was the right thing to do. I wanted to pay him the respect that his experiences and his life deserves. And I just sat there in awe. He's a very powerful man. He feels greatly and deeply, and he's able to express that. And for him, it's very much tied to riding a bike. So we started off talking about his experience in the Vietnam War, and it's a little morose, but it's a big part of his personal story and a big part of why he rides. So I thought that was definitely important to talk about. His lovely wife, Linda, was sitting with us at the table. And so every once in a while, you'll hear Hal talking to her on the side. So anyway, if you hear him talking to somebody, that's who it is. Oh man, I'm still learning, guys. About halfway through the interview, my batteries died and I had backup batteries. I was prepared for that, but I should have changed them before we sat down to record. So anyway, you're going to hear me pop in the middle of the show and be like, oops, my bad. And then we'll just kind of pick up with the conversation. And like, Hal is such a conversationalist. Like he just sits down and you start talking and he can just go and go and go. And so I just turned on the mic and let him talk. So, anyway, it's going to be kind of a little bit raw. Partly that's my fault with my my battery mistake there. So, but I think it's a great episode, and I think he really he dug deep. He dug deep in the interview, and he put it all out there. So thank you, Hal. And listen, man, good luck out there on the Tour Divide. I hope you get a chance to listen to this while you're out there. I've been following your dot the entire time. Really tough conditions this year, but you're killing it, man. You are doing it. And every time I go on a bike ride right now, I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about you out there, and knowing that if you can do it, that I can too. One of my favorite quotes from this interview was when Hal said, "Quitting's too easy. That's the easiest thing to do in life, is to quit." I mean, that is just powerful. And I definitely want to be more like Hal. And if I want to be more like Hal, then I can't quit, because Hal doesn't quit. So go get him, Hal. Love you, bud. And give him hell, dude. We'll be rooting for you the entire time. All right, well, let's shift gears just a little bit, and let me talk to you about Bikes or Death Business. This is where you have the opportunity as listeners to support the show. If you notice, there are no advertisers. I don't get on here and try to sell you baby wipes or Clorox bleach or hiring. I don't even know any of that stupid shit. I don't do that. But I do ask that if you love this show and if you love the bikepacking community, you love the outdoors, I've set up 3 ways in which you can support the show. You can go to Patreon. Patreon is a way that you can financially support the show. For patrons, there are perks. You get stickers and patches, and I'm working on some other really cool stuff. I have lots of ideas for my patrons, and I'm going to be hopefully rolling out some of them like in a week or 2. Like, they're very forthcoming. So stay tuned for that. The other thing you can do is you can go to my website. It's www.bikesordeath.com. And you can find on the right-hand side, there's an Amazon affiliate link. So all you have to do is click on that and bookmark it. Every time you buy something on Amazon, I'll get a cut. It doesn't cost you anything. The prices are the same. All it does is take money away from Jeff Bezos, and it gives it to me. Jeff Bezos to Bikes or Death. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you to everybody who uses that hyperlink. And the last thing you can do is you can go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review. I've continually been blown away by all the reviews that we keep getting and all the messages that I get, and all the patrons. Man, y'all been blowing up Patreon, and it matters. It literally matters. So I appreciate it. Keep it up. Keep showing your love and keep spreading the word about the show, and I'll keep pumping out great content. Thanks, guys. All right, one more thing. I've decided that I want to do a contest. I want to grow the Bikes or Death brand, but I am not creative in that way at all. And so I've been like behind the scenes. I've been like hiring some graphic artists and stuff, and they're not really getting my vision, and I don't even have a vision, so that's part of the problem. So, all right. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to post all the rules on Instagram and Facebook. If you're not on those platforms, just email me a design. I'm not looking to replace the logo. I like the logo. I'm just looking to expand the brand. You know, think hats or shirts or water bottles or anything, right? So I'm going to kick that to the artist. And hopefully we get some good stuff. And then once I have a logo, I might just go crazy. I might put that shit on everything. Oh, man. I might go crazy. Yeah, that'll be fun. So anyway, stay tuned. I'm going to be posting that here in the next few days. But like I said, if you're not on either of those platforms, just email me some images and you'll be put in the running. It's my email's bikes@bikesordeath.com. Now let's, what do you say we get to the show?
I came in the door, I said it before. I never let the mic magnetize me no more. But it's biting me, inviting me to rhyme. I can't hold it back, I'm looking for the line.
I had 3 reasons why I started doing these races. And first was to meet people, to see the humanity does exist. And then the second one was to discover the country. You know, you dream as a little kid, you dream of all that beautiful country. You dream of being a mountain man and all those sorts of things. And then you really get to see it. And then the third was I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I discovered that's the best way for me to kind of take care of my past and the ghosts, and you know, keep myself halfway sane and so on. No, that's why I do the adventure races, because of Vietnam. You know, that's
Yeah.
you know, some people will be out there, we're racing, or they want to they want to ride with me and stuff. And you know, I hate to be rude, but not that I have agenda, but I'm not out there to beat you, but I am competitive. If you lag back or you go to sleep, I'm gonna pass you, you know.
Yeah.
But my main reason is, you know, those three reasons. I want to see the country. I want to meet people. Like one time, Billy Rice, somebody at his Indy asked him, "You ever stop and talk to people?" And he said, "No, but Hal does." And I do. I'll visit with you.
Yeah.
You know, might not tarry, but if you want to shake hands and visit, I'm all up. That's why I'm there in a way.
Well, I asked Lael about her new film, I'm Not Stopping, and I
Yeah.
asked her why she titled it that. It turns out she wasn't the one who titled it, but the reason why it was titled that is because there's these guys that found her on Spot Tracker, and they tried to go and interview or just take a picture
Yeah.
with her and stop
Yeah.
and say hi. She's like, I'm not stopping.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is a race.
And I agree with her. I don't do that either. If you know, I'm not going to give you an interview.
Yeah.
But I'll be more polite to you than probably she would. You know, I'll give you.
Oh, she's
give-
very polite in her.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, she is.
yeah,
She is.
yeah.
I meant, you know.
I know what you meant. Yeah.
No, she.
I just didn't want to
Lel-
give the wrong impression that
no.
she's like, I'm not talking to
no,
you.
No, Lel's not that way. No.
No, not at all. And then I remember also her Trans Am in 2016. I don't know if you remember when she won, but she caught up to the guy who had been in first place like pretty much the whole race. And whenever she caught him, he's like, "Hey, you want to ride in together?" And she's like, "No, this is
No.
a race."
It's like Mike Hall said. Somebody told him that too. He said, "No quarter, you know, no quarter." And I'm that way too. And I made a mistake one time riding with a girl. It had been in 2015, I think, and that cost me 1 or 2 days. And I thought, why did I do? I know why I did it, to be nice. And she was, you know, I thought, you know, she was having a hard time. But last year, a guy, he started riding with me, and I have friends that might just meet me along the way that live where they, you know, I'm going right by where they live or where they're at, and they'll jump in and ride with me for 2 or 3 hours. Or in this one case, Greg Goodman, a friend of mine, he's actually from Kansas City, but he lives in Silverthorne. He has a home out there. And the last 2 times I did the divide, one time he just jumped in and rode with me, maybe 3 hours up to Breckenridge or somewhere. And then he cut on out, and you know, he might be 30 yards ahead of me or even out of sight at times. We just ride
Right.
back and forth. But
Yeah.
we'll visit off and on. And
Yeah, you're out there
we're
together.
good friends. But last year he said, I get 2 days off. He said, care if I just ride along with you for a couple of days? And yeah, have at it, you know. And he said, I'll just stop wherever you stop at night. And so we started at Silverthorne, and there was another rider, and he joined up with us, and I realized he's wanting to ride with me, this other guy. And nothing against him, I want to ride by myself.
Yeah.
And riding with Greg, it wasn't like I was riding with somebody. He was just tagging along
Right.
and being nice. And when I'd stop, he'd stop. I didn't wait any time on him. And one time I did stop. We'd going up Boris Pass, and I stopped a minute. I told Greg I got to stop and rest just a minute. And the other guy had a minor breakdown, light or something. And then he called up and he said, thanks for waiting. I thought, I didn't wait on you. No, I was going on. You just caught up with me. And then we got to the top of Boris Pass. It was late at night, and he expected we'd camp there. And there's another girl, I can't think of her name now, a woman, and she was really nice. And anyway, Jackie is her name. And so she said, you guys going on? I said, well, I am. I'm going on to what is the name of that place?
Antelope Wells.
No,
Okay.
we were up at Boris Pass, Como,
Okay.
and it's on the way to Hartselle. But I know the guy there. He has a bed and breakfast there, and he lets me sleep in his yard. And there's nothing there at Como, but he's a kind of a rich, fanatic guy, and he's got a real locomotive and a whole train station recreate in the past. So I camped there, and I did that one time before, and his name's Dennis, I think, or David, I'm not sure. But anyway, but you have to go down in the gold dust and drop off. When you get to the top of Boris Pass, you have a single track, and it's pretty rough. And you're not going down there at night. I said, I am. And I was hoping that I'd lose them. They'd all stay back. They jumped in and went with me. But we got it at Como about midnight. And I'm trying to get up early and slip out, but that didn't happen. My friend Greg said, when you leaving? I told him. And so he was awake and got ready to go with me. He was going to go on down to Hartselle, and then he would stop there and then go back home from there, which he did. Well, the other guy went with us too, and then he tried to ride with me after that. And I said, I don't mean to be rude, but I need to ride by myself. And I told him, I just, I have an agenda, and I just like to be, I ride with my Vietnam ghosts, my memories and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I need to be by myself.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a good segue on how I wanted to kind of open up the show a little bit. But before we get to that, I'll introduce you real quick.
Okay.
I'm actually sitting down with Hal Russell, and we're on the back porch of his house, and we are in the middle of nowhere. I had to get off a road and then drive down that one for about 40 miles and get on another one. And you live in the middle of nowhere. Is that safe to say?
I live out in the woods in the Ozarks.
Yeah. Whenever because people who do these types of adventure racing and travel by bike across America, you always see these idyllic little houses, in the middle of nowhere. And you're like, man, I always have two questions. One, how did you get there?
Right.
And two, what is life like? Living this maybe simply, I don't know. But how'd you get here, and what's it like to live here?
Well, we got here, like I had told you earlier, I taught school, and as a boy, I think my dream was always have a log house in the woods someday, and this is as close as I could ever come to it. And we farmed for 20 years, and then farming was a hard way to make a living. And long story short, I was able to go back to college when I was 38 years old. And I went to college, got a teaching degree, and then we decided to sell our farm, and this is where we ended up at. We found this little house in the woods.
Did you grow up in a fairly small town, or?
Yeah, Lowry City, which is about 15 miles north of here. And I didn't grow up in town. I was born and raised on a farm.
Okay.
So about a mile or two out of town.
So that lifestyle has always been
It's
somewhat
always,
comfortable
yeah,
to
I grew
you.
up in the, we're not in the woods up there. The area is called where the plain meets the woods. That little town, there's a sign there that says where the plain meets the Ozarks, actually. And so it's more farmland up there. And so long story short, I stayed on. I graduated from Lowry City High School, 9 kids in my class, and
Whoa.
it's a little place. And so then, I went off. After I graduated, I stayed on the farm for maybe 2 months milking cows. Dad said, "You can milk these cows as long as you want to, and then I'm going to sell them," because we always milk cows, but it was getting hard to do. And so I milked the cow for a couple of months, and that's 7 days a week, morning and night. And I thought, I can't do this very long. So I went to Kansas City and got a job at Hallmark Cards, and
Really?
started living the dream, so to speak. I bought a new car, a Camaro, and
What year?
67,
Oh, okay.
brand new, the first year they come out.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Do you still have it?
no.
Bet you wish you did.
Yeah, I wish I did, but then I worked there a year, and I was drafted in the Army. That was Vietnam time, And then so I gave my car to my dad and went off to the Army, and then eventually I went to Vietnam.
Yeah. Well,
So-
yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me out to your home. Being from Texas, I grew up in a little bit more of a city setting, but certainly this rural type property,
Yeah.
a little cabin in the woods, is something that really appeals to me. And I often wonder if I could like retire in a place like this and be happy, or if I would just go crazy because
Yeah.
I get stir crazy and like, oh man, I got to go do something. Do you ever feel like that, or is that where the
No.
bike comes in?
That's where the bike comes in, but that's my dream. I mean, it's just my wife and I now. We have 2 kids, but they're grown. They're off on their own,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just us. And you'll be the only person that'll come down and see us for a month, probably.
Yeah.
We have company once in a while, but nobody comes down here.
This is your social interaction.
Yeah, this
oh
is-
man, now I'm
I-
feeling the pressure.
No, I coffee shop. I go to coffee over
Uh-huh.
in Warsaw, and I ride my bike every day. I mean, I could say every day pretty
Yeah.
pretty easily. And right now I'm training a little bit for the Tour Divide. So tomorrow I'll do 50 to 100 miles tomorrow, and I'll do 50 or so the next day too. I'll get in 100-mile ride.
How far away is that coffee shop?
It's 22 miles from here.
Okay.
So,
Good Lord.
but the way I go now with the water up, it's exactly 40 miles to the coffee shop from here.
Yeah.
The way I ride in the hills, I have good training routes.
Are you well known in these parts? I mean, driving around,
No.
there's not a lot of people. So are you known as, there goes Hal riding his bike and
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think I'm not well known, but everybody knows.
But yeah, and
They're
in that
gonna-
way, they're like, hey, there's that guy
they're
riding his
gonna
bike again.
they're gonna say hi, Hal.
Okay.
I was just telling my wife now people know who I am at Warsaw as well. I ride the back. You talked about coming up through the Ozark and some of those hills.
Mhm.
Well, I ride through areas like that with the yards are full of lawnmowers and 20-mile lawnmowers and refrigerators, no TVs in the yard, and they're out there. And I'll get a lot of high house, and as I go through, and I
You're the people's champion.
no, I'm just an old dude riding a bicycle.
No,
but-
it's cool though.
But
I I'm sure. I mean, I know. I look
Yeah.
at you and I'm like, man, Hal's out there getting it again, and I'm sure other people are too.
Yeah.
They're sitting on their porch watching you go by, and there goes Hal
well,
again.
There's a lot of nice people around, and the community up at Lowry City where I'm from, they know me. And I taught school for 22 years in Osceola, and I grew up in this area, so everybody knows everybody. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I imagine.
they all know you.
I wanted to go back just a little bit because you brought up Vietnam, and I know that that is a major reason why you bike ride.
Yeah.
And since we're recording this podcast on Friday, and it was just Memorial Day, I was wondering if you would maybe be willing to share maybe just like what your personal life was like before, and then maybe after the war.
Yeah, Veteran Day is the day that I think back. It's
Mhm.
Veteran Day. Memorial Day, I just kind of, the Memorial Days, sometimes we forget and we celebrate that for the wrong reason. It's about those that gave it all
Right.
Memorial Day, and people
Correct.
sometimes forget that. So I kind of have a hard time with Memorial Day around people. They're out having a good time, and they're celebrating, and they'll even say, "Oh, Happy Memorial Day," and it isn't about me. No, that day isn't about me. It's about those that aren't here, and
Yeah.
that's what people forget. But Veteran Day, that's one day out of the year that I stop and I remember.
Yeah. So how was it for you whenever you came home?
When I came home, I was a draftee, so I didn't realize it till I landed in Fort Lewis, Washington. Actually, I landed in Seattle that night. I couldn't, plane couldn't land because it was fogged in, so I ended up taking a bus from Seattle Airport to Fort Lewis to process out. And there was a sign. I'd heard a rumor that if you had less than 5 months as a draftee, they'd let you out, go early out. And I didn't really believe that till I seen a sign said you turn right and you can process out if you got less than 5 months to go, or you go straight and you can re-up. And I thought about going straight, but I went right, and I got out. And I was home 3 days, and I thought I screwed up. I don't belong here no more. I belong in Vietnam, and that was had become my home, and I didn't have no friends here no more, and so, and that happened. That that was with me for a long, long time, and I kind of just got lost. I did go back and got my job back at Hallmarks, bought a new car, and started my old life back up. But that lasted about a year, and somebody talked me into just giving away my car and saying the heck with it, and we went off to Canada. I don't know what we were going to do, but we did, and I ended up, I quit my job, and I didn't have nothing, and I grew long hair. I dropped into the so-called hippie lifestyle.
Yeah.
Kind of lived with my sister some, kind of lived with friends and whatnot, and lived with a girl a time or two off and on, and then I met my wife, and I didn't have nothing when I met her. I was going to Penn Valley College, a community college, night some, and anyway, I thought, that's when I got turned around somewhat, and then we got married.
She straightened you up, or she's
straightened
still trying?
Yeah, well, probably still trying. but yeah, that's
How long have y'all been together?
46 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's everything for me. I mean,
Yeah. To be honest with you, the reason I brought it up is because I was born in 1980, and for me, Vietnam is something that I read about in a textbook, and so, it is. I can't say that I understand or I relate, because the truth is that I don't.
For me, it's minutes ago, seconds ago. I wasn't no war hero or nothing. I spent 5 months up at one place in the jungle up in An Khê in the highlands, and then I spent another 7 months down in central Vietnam in what's called the lowlands in a kind of a field task force unit. But it just, you relive, you relive it all the time at night, especially in nightmares and stuff. I used to it. I don't, but I do. I mean, it's
just something you'll live with.
Yeah, and that's what I finally figured out. I finally got help from the veterans. You don't realize anything's wrong with you, if you can call it something being wrong with you. And somebody said maybe you could go to the Veterans Administration and get some help. And so I did, and then they said, oh, you have what they call PTSD, and I didn't even know what that was. But then I started seeing a counselor, and one thing, I still see her. I just seen her a couple of days, Tuesday, I guess, and I see her about once a month. But my plan was, we're trying to formulate plans on how to, how I could get a little more sane, you might say. And I said, one thing I like to do, I've learned this over the years. I used to run a lot, and I'd run 5Ks and 10Ks, and I camp a lot, and I started running marathons, and then I discovered mountain biking, and I thought that's where I'm best suited.
What age was that whenever you first got back into running?
Oh, probably in my 50s.
Yeah.
40s or 50s. But I did a lot of camping. I hunted. I used to be you might say, a big game guide with my cousin out in Colorado some.
You said you were a guide?
A little bit. I worked
nice.
for my cousin that was elk and deer.
Okay.
When I didn't, my story also, when I quit my job back at Hallmarks, the Canada thing didn't work out, and I went and joined the Peace Corps, and I spent a little while in India in the Peace Corps, and I didn't stick with that either, and that's when I come back and kind of lived as a hippie for a while. But
Woodstock? Oh no, you were after Woodstock.
I was in Vietnam when Woodstock happened. But when you mentioned that, the reason I went to Canada, this guy, John Ropp was his name. He'd gone to Woodstock. He said, "Let's go up to Canada." I have friends up there. When I was up in Woodstock, up in New York, and so that's what took me up there. I did what he said.
Okay.
And, I messed up.
Yeah. Well,
But
I've been down a road like that
yeah.
before too. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories. But like when I went to Vietnam, like when I went in the Army, I had a new car, good job, my girlfriend. When I come back, I think I was about 10 months into Vietnam, and I got the Dear John letter that how I'm going to get married, and I met somebody else and all that sort of thing. And then, so no car, no job, no nothing. So you come back, you're going to restart that over, and you think you just plug it back in, but it didn't happen until I met Linda. So.
Well, yeah, Linda's a sweet lady too. Y'all are a good pair as far as I can tell. I didn't want to bring up too much, but I understand that Memorial Day is for people who gave everything, but I thought it was important to at least acknowledge that and share a little bit of about your story in that regard.
Yeah.
So I do thank you for your service, and for whatever that is worth.
Yeah, I always feel I didn't do nothing. I was just there.
Well, the way I look at it is you're doing a lot right now. Whenever I decided to start this podcast, I put down a list of probably the first 10 people I want to interview, and you were the first one on there. So for me personally, you're definitely an inspirational character, and I talk about you a lot, whether it's on the podcast or to friends, and I'm like, Hal's out there doing it,
I idolize the other veterans, and I gave a speech here, a veterans thing a couple years ago, and I read this on a monument when I was out in Oregon after I finished the American Trail Race, and this guy asked me to give this speech, our talk at Veterans Day at a school, and I don't know. I asked him what I should talk about, and he said, well, maybe you could tell the kids, because you're going to talk to the student body, how they could be anything they set their mind to. And that's what my dad always told me. And then maybe, tell the other veterans that would be there how you deal with it. And so that's what I kind of did. But I read this one little thing and not so much for me. I feel like I didn't do nothing in the service, but this it said I told the veterans to ask them to stand, and I said I read this little saying, and it said I don't ask not for your sympathy, only for your understanding. Because for once I stood for something, I stood for you. And I think that's what the veterans are, true veterans. That's why, like you said, Memorial Day, they gave it their all. So, anyway, I get off on things.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's good to hear. And I think, that is an important part of your story, and how you're, that's I wanted to kind of take it into the biking, because I know that's a big part of why you ride, but I think it's important that for you, that's a big part of it, So yeah, maybe you could segue into talking about when you were introduced to the bike and how that's maybe helped you.
Yeah, I was, that's a story too. We were in Colorado, and I'd run the Pike Peak Marathon. I'd run the Ascent the first time, and then I run it the next year. I run the marathon again, and then I actually I came down with hepatitis C, and so I had to go on chemo for a year or 11 months, and actually I wasn't sure if I'd gonna live. I did some experimental treatment, but I did, and I never quit running. I ran all that year. But then my goal was I'm going to go back and run Pikes Peak again. And
is that the same one they do the car race on?
Yeah, it is. Only you're going up the backside. It's a trail race.
Okay.
It's a marathon.
Sorry, I'm not a runner, so.
It's a marathon distance up and back down. And you're not going very fast.
All right, sorry about that. This is where I ran out of batteries, so the story continues. You missed a chunk. Sorry about that. Oops, my bad.
And I'd planned to do the Leadville 100, so it was back a few years ago. And I did the Leadville 100 3 times. That was the 4th time I was going to do it. And so Valentine's Day, I think that's yeah. And the race is in the second week in August, and it's exactly 6 months out. And I broke my leg, and the doctor said, "Oh, maybe 2 years, you know." And I had a trainer online out in California at the time with Winslow Training, and I had Linda. I said, "Well, you got to call Roger." But they waited till the next day, but they'd take me to ambulance and all that, and it broke the bone in two. And
Oh, up on your thigh?
yeah.
Oh,
it hurt bad.
God.
So anyway, I asked the doctor later, "Oh, why did I break my leg like that? I just fell down." He said, "Exactly, you fell down." He was a smart ass, so to speak.
Apparently.
Yeah, but he was a nice guy. I told him what I wanted to do. I said, 6 months, I need to ride a 100-mile mountain bike race up the mountain and all that stuff, and up to 12,000 feet. He kind of laughed at me, but he said, "I know what you're talking about." And he after he operated on me, he said, he put a rod in my leg, and he said, "I put a couple extra pins in there for you."
Oh.
So I made it. I didn't do you need to do it under 12 hours to get what's called the silver belt buckle.
Yeah.
And I didn't, but I finished the race.
Yeah. That's a tough race.
I did it 4 times, and before that, the first time I didn't finish, so I got a trainer to help me online. And the next year, I finished in. You got to finish under 12 hours. I finished 11 minutes and 27 seconds.
Oh.
And so I made it, 11 hours.
Oh, 11 hours. I thought you were saying 12 hours and 11 minutes.
11 hours
Okay.
and 27 seconds. So I made it. I got the belt buckle. Well, then the next year, I broke my neck, didn't I? Broke my neck. I fell off the house here.
What?
Yeah. And no, I a mountain bike down at Bentonville. I landed on my head, and that's what it was.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's another race. No, it was I fell off I fell off the house. Anyway, I broke my neck. So I told the doctor what I had to do, and I got to get ready to ride this race. And that was Memorial Day, actually, when I did it. We were down at Bentonville. And so, or something like that, I forget what. Yeah. And so anyway, I had to stay on. I had to wear a neck brace full time for 24 hours around the clock. And then I did it for 5 weeks, and he said, then if it's healing back, I'll let you ride. And he was reluctant to do that, but
Did you have the neck brace on?
and I was able to take it off.
Okay.
And he said, "Don't fall off your bike."
Right.
So anyway, I made it, and I raced that year, and I finished in 11 hours and 58 minutes and 25 seconds.
Man, were you pumping at the end trying to
Yeah,
make it?
yeah. You're I know my son. He went that year, and he was up at the top, and he was just talking to somebody. Yeah, my dad's out there, but he's not going to make it. And when you come back, you're 40 miles out at Twin Lakes, and I told Dallas he was helping me that year. And I was being interviewed. They were doing a documentary on the Leadville that year, and they asked me to be in the movie. They wanted people that had overcome things, so they were out there filming. They had a little track and tag on you, and I was one of them that had bit parts in the movie. And I think
What movie was that?
it's called Leadville 2010. Yeah.
Okay. The only one I've seen is Ride in the Sky. There's Ride in the Sky 1 and 2.
That's one.
Okay. That's what it's.
I think it's 2. It's 2. It's number 2. I was in number 1 too, but I wasn't in the movie.
Oh,
I was in the
okay.
race.
All right.
But
all
I was
right.
in the
I'll have to
movie.
go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
It's been many years before I
2010.
even.
Yeah, no, you'll see in the.
So you're in there with Lance Armstrong,
I am.
neck and neck, huh?
Right. God.
Giving him a run for his money.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the one I'm in, and Lance Armstrong was the year before, and I was there with, I was in the race. I started with Lance.
Heck yeah.
But Levi Leipheimer, he won the next year.
That's
and,
right.
And so I'm in that movie with
Yeah.
Levi.
Well, we had a little technical difficulty. I ran out of batteries, so I had to pop them back in. So we kind of jumped forward a little bit. My apologies, but why don't you tell us? If I remember correctly, you went to go watch a friend trail run the Leadville 100. No. You went to go watch a mountain bike the Leadville 100.
What it was my wife and I were going to meet up with my nephew and niece and my daughter out at Leadville, and we were going to climb a 14er. I think Mount Yell, if you're familiar with any of the
I am, yeah.
14ers out there. And so we would all meet at Leadville and have dinner and get together and then pack in, climb Mount Yell, and the next week would be the marathon, the Pike Peak Marathon, and that kind of give us a warm-up, you might say.
Okay.
So that was the plan, but we were there, and it was 6 o'clock in the evening, and this shotgun went off. And I seen some mountain bikers laying in the courtyard, and so I asked somebody, why'd they shoot a shotgun? You know, this old guy in a cowboy hat shot this shotgun off, and it was Ken Colber's. And they said, that's a 100-mile mountain bike race, Leadville 100. And I thought, wow. And I looked at Linda. She, as usual, you're not going to do that, are you? And I didn't own a bike at the time. Well, I grew up riding bicycle, but I hadn't rode them. You know, we had old bikes, but nothing like you know, what they had. But long story short, I come home, bought a mountain bike, and a couple of years later, I actually entered the Silver Rush 50 at Leadville. It's a 50-mile race, and it's pretty tough, actually. I tried to enter the Leadville, but it's by lottery, and I couldn't get in. Well, the second year I did it, I was the last ass over the pass. They give an award for being the last one. And Mary Lynn, she's one of them that her and Ken, they run the race at the time, and she said, well, you ought to do the Leadville next year. And I said, 100. I said, I can't get in. She said, you sign up.
Yeah,
and
we'll get you
I
in.
think, yeah, she got me in,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Anyway, I got in. I did it for 4 years until they sold the race.
That. If I remember correctly, you were 57 when you first picked up a mountain bike.
Something like that.
Around
I
there,
don't,
yeah.
yeah.
What was it? Love at first ride?
Oh, yeah. I thought this is it.
What is it about you where you see that and you're like, oh, you look at your wife and she already knows. She sees it in your eyes. And you're like, I'm going to buy a bike.
Yeah.
You know where does that come from?
Well, I think you're born with adventure. My dad, he was an adventurer. He used to tell us big stories. We grew up on a farm, and we were probably poor, but we didn't know we were poor. I mean, we never had modern plumbing. Didn't have a bathroom in the house my whole time at home. Anyway, my dad, he used to say three things. He'd tell us a story. He wanted to be a cowboy, and he had three dreams: cowboy, a pilot, and a baseball player. And I'd hear his big stories. He never really succeeded at none of those, but he came close.
Really?
When he got out of high school, he thumbed a ride, and he hitched a ride on he had an old car, him and another kid, and it broke down in Kansas, and he sold his part of the car to the other kid, and he hitched a train with some bums that run. Then you could ride the rail, so to speak. And he went to Sheridan, Wyoming, out of Story, Wyoming, and he knew a kid out there that said, you can get a job on a ranch out here, and he did, and he worked all summer. But then it was about time for the war to start breaking out, World War II. And so he came back and joined the Navy. But his idea was to be a pilot in the Navy. He come close to that. He was a navigator, and he finally went to pilot school towards the end of the war, and I think he was 3 weeks into it, and the war was ending, and they did away with pilot school. And then as a baseball player, he was pretty good. He was an infielder, second baseman. He's a little guy about my size, only he was a lot better athlete than I ever have been. But he was quite the baseball player, and he had a chance one time to go try out for the New York Yankees. And then it was a farm club, the Kansas City Blues, up in Kansas City. And he said he thumbed a ride. He got as far as Garden City, never had no support from home. His dad never seen one game he ever played. Dad was good. And he said, I looked at my pocket watch, and I was not going to make it to the tryouts, so I walked across the road and thumbed my way back home. And
No way.
Joined the Navy.
Oh wow,
So,
heartbreaking.
yeah. But
That's
that
but he
was,
obviously had an adventurous personality. He had a
yeah,
big
yeah.
thinker, maybe like.
He played second base in the Navy some too at different naval bases he's at.
Mhm.
And he talked one time we're listening to the New York Giants. I love baseball. That's my main love, you might say. And we're listening to the radio, and he said that was my manager. And they named a guy on there. I said, what manager? He said, yeah, that's the manager of the New York Giants. We listened to the ball game on the radio, milking cows. He said he was my manager up in Seattle when I was in the Navy there.
Yeah.
Because all those guys went to in World War II. They stopped baseball and they were
Yeah.
in the service. Oh wow.
How much of like riding bikes and going on these adventures is just kind of getting away and getting into nature? Because obviously you grew up in a rural setting.
I'm a home out there. That's a home.
Yeah.
People say they're scared out there. I'm not scared out there. I'm where I belong, just like here, and I'm not the dark. I like it to be dark. I'm safe in the dark. So
Why do you feel that way?
I don't know. I always have. Dad. I think Dad taught me those things. Nobody can see in the dark. You know, you're safe out there in the dark, and he's right. He was right. But
I think it's safer riding at night with all your blinky lights.
yeah,
too.
yeah.
I love riding at night. If you're through the wilderness, you get to see all the wildlife. You'll
Yeah.
see owls flying
you
ahead of
see-
you
yeah.
and deer, and
You do. You see.
you just see all the wildlife.
I'm respectful. They say, "Aren't you scared of the grizzlies and stuff like that?" I'm just respectful of them. I know the danger there, but they don't want to bother me, and I don't want to bother them.
Yeah.
You know, the truth is. So.
Well, they always say, right, you can go drive your car into city and get hit, or you
Oh.
can ride your bike on the Tour Divide and get eaten by a grizzly, I guess. But I mean, there's risk in anything that you do.
I'm more scared of the humans
I am
in
too.
the cities. I
Yeah.
don't stay in cities. My goal, and that hasn't happened yet, but my goal on the Tour Divide or a race like that is to camp out every night. And I come close last year. I had a lot of mechanicals, and so I had to stay at motel for 4 bike shops and wait for them to open. So that's the only time I stayed anywhere besides camping out.
So when was the first time you actually did? Well, actually, let me back up. After Leadville, how long was it after that you did your first ultra, and was that the Tour Divide?
It was the Tour Divide. I waited a couple years. Actually, I tried to get in. Ken Colbert sold the race to
Blueprint?
a corporate, Lifetime Fitness.
Oh, yes.
And originally, that's who he sold it to. And then I couldn't get in no more. They really closed it up. And if you didn't know somebody, I used to volunteer and help, and there were probably 20 or 30 of us. We were automatically in every year after the first time I got in. But they didn't know who I was, it seemed like, after that, and I couldn't get back in. So I entered, I think, a race out in Wyoming, but I didn't get in it. And I'm looking for other races to get in. And I came home one day and from school, teaching school, and Linda said, "Oh, I seen this documentary. You ought to, you ought to watch it." I said, "Really?" "Yeah, and it's called Ride the Divide."
Oh, no.
So I watched it, and
The movie that changed bikepacking forever.
Yeah, and she looked at me, and she
knew.
She knew. Yeah, so.
Well, it's her fault. She
Yeah,
introduced
I know.
it to you. So.
But
Is Linda fairly adventurous? You've referred to her. She's kind of
she backs me on my adventures. Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. I drug her a few places. We've gone on some adventures. We went moose hunting once on a shoestring when we first got married up in Canada.
Yeah.
And that kind of enlightened her to what life was going to be like.
How'd she take to it?
Oh, great. That's another whole story. But
Yeah.
we missed a big bull moose, and we did it on nothing. I think it cost us $200
Yeah,
or something.
that's beautiful. I don't, certainly not a marriage expert, but for me personally, like having those commonalities, those things you can kind of bond over, are important, because relationships are always going to be a little bit tough, but if you can at least bond over some commonality,
Yeah.
it helps.
Yeah. I mean, you have to understand each other. You have to give and take. I mean, that's what it's about. If you don't, I mean, I hope I understand her too, and see her side of things.
46 years?
Yeah, 46
Doing
years.
pretty good.
Yeah.
So, oh dang, We were going to talk about Leadville. Oh yeah, your first Leadville.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, maybe my first Tour Divide.
Your first. Sorry.
Yeah.
Now we're on.
Yeah, we're
the
back
same
on.
track.
So
Yes.
anyway, so I had a friend that was into endurance biking up at Clinton, Missouri, and he was kind of under the radar. People didn't know what he really did. Sam Ball's his name, but he's right up there with the big boys. He was a road racer, but I think he did the American race across the United States.
Trans Am.
Yeah, the one where you go 5 or 6 days. You try to go nonstop.
Oh. Wow.
They made a movie about that.
Is that Inspired to Ride?
No.
I'm trying to.
That's a trail race there. Ram.
Oh,
Right across
race
America.
across. Yeah.
Race across America.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Anyway, he did that kind of racing. I don't think he didn't do that. He qualified for it once, but he did the Furnace. He did a lot of these, like right across the desert. What is
like Death Valley.
Death Valley.
Yeah.
He did that a couple times. He did the race down in Georgia. You know who Tinker Juarez is?
I've only heard the
Well,
name.
he's rode. Tinker finally broke one of his records down in Georgia, I think, and so I mean he's right up there with the big time guys. And anyway, he kind of instilled in me, what endurance racing was. My light bulb went. I got it, my eyes lit up when I started hearing his stories, and so he's famous for around here riding the Katy Trail. We have a trail called the Katy Trail.
Oh yeah.
He used to hold records riding, from Clinton to St. Louis and back. And his training would be he run a mower shop and had a little bicycle. He still does a little bicycle shop in there. But his training would be on Saturday and Sunday. He'd ride 200 miles Saturday and 200 miles Sunday, and that would be his whole training.
Wow.
And he'd do it quickly.
Did you cut your teeth on the Katy Trail at all?
Not really.
skipped it?
Mostly around these hills. I rode the Katy Trail some.
Yeah.
It's very boring.
Yeah.
I
it's
used to use
a little
my
pedestrian.
that's where I train for my long runs for marathons, is up on the Katy Trail, because each mile is marked, and so you can if you want to do a 20-mile run, you know exactly your
Right.
time and between miles and your distance out and back. But I did my share of the Katy Trail, but it's just a chat road. Most of my training's here in the hills.
Yeah.
And it's all up and down. There's no flat roads.
No,
here.
there's no flat. You're
Yeah.
either going up or going down.
Yeah.
That's about all you
Yeah,
got.
pretty
Unless
much.
you're crossing a river.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then it flattens out for a
we
minute.
have a few flat places, but I have a lot of routes, 20-mile routes, 10-mile routes, 50-mile routes, 100-mile routes, and so I just keep going.
Right.
And so that's
That first Tour Divide, it was 2015 or 2013?
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so anyway, I was in the dark. I'm getting in over my head, but that's the neat thing about it. Dad taught me that too. Just jump in, Yeah, it's just like you learn to swim.
Yeah.
You got to jump in. So basically, that's pretty much it. I bought through Sam up at Clinton, Sam Ball. He sold a bike called KHS, and I'd bought one to ride in the Leadville 100, a little 26er, and then but they started making a carbon, and I bought a 29 KHS, the Team Elite, and that was my first nice bike. That was a nice bike. When I did the Silver Rush 50, I probably had the first 29er around. I know I was the only one in the Leadville and the Silver Rush 50 on a 29er.
Wow, early
Somebody
adopter.
seen me on that bike as the Gary Fisher, and I said, "What's that?" And I said, "All I know is the guy at the bike shop said this is a new thing. You ought
Yeah.
to buy one."
I just listened to another podcast where he had it was the Adventure Stash with Payson McClevin, but he interviewed Gary Fisher,
Yeah.
and they were talking about the 29er and all the research that went into it, and he personally kind of, I guess, came up with the idea and said, "Hey, build me this wheel," and then tested it out. And
He's the innovator of the 29er.
he is,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
the guy.
He's the
guy.
one.
Some people credit him with inventing mountain bikes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of.
If not him, who else, right?
I haven't met him, but my buddy met him one time, and he's quite a character.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah.
We need people like him.
Yeah. And so anyway, I had that bike. My son still has that bike. I give it to my son.
Wow,
he
that's great.
rides it now. And I just asked him the other day and about that. But
What was that first one like? I know that you finished.
yeah, I did. Each one's been an adventure. I know, like I said, I know two things. I know I'm going to start and I know I'm going to finish. And of all the runs, I surely did several hundred different types of runs, and I did quite a few bike races of different types. And so far, I finished every race. I might have drug in last, but I haven't quit any. Quitting's too easy. I learned that I quit a few things, 2 or 3 things in my lifetime, and that's a big mistake. And that's the easiest thing you can do is quit. So
Right.
I'm sure one of these days something will happen, and I'll have to call it. But maybe I come close each time. That first time I got out, and I didn't know how to use the GPS. I was on maps, and the first a guy wanted to ride with me, and I thought, boy, this is the way to go. I'll ride with him, and we rode clear to Lincoln, and he was having trouble, and we got drowned, and we got hypothermia, and he said, let's get a motel, and I said, well, I'll tell you what, and I had an agenda that thought I was going to go out in there in Wyoming, that great that desert. What's that? I can't think of what it's called right now. But anyway, I thought I'd bury my so-called ghost out there in that desert. But anyway, this guy Ed, he said, let's stay here. And it was only about noon or 1 o'clock. And I said, I'll tell you what, if you just, I told you I needed to go off by myself. I want to go on. Maybe you can catch me later. But I said, let me warm up and dry things out. And he did. And I warmed up in his motel room. And then I took off. And I text Linda and I told her I'm riding by myself now. And she said, well, be careful. I was heading up in the mountains up towards the Continental Divide. And it was raining. And she said, you're all by yourself? And I said, well, really, I'm not by myself. And I knew she knew what I meant. I was with my couple buddies I'd lost in Vietnam. And ironic thing, I started climbing up this pass called Temple Pass, or has another name, but you're going up to that pass. And all my memories come back and everything. I just let them kind of overflow me, so to speak. And I got up there, and it just everything got black like it was nighttime, but it was daylight. And a rainstorm, like no rain. You know, I'm in the Continental Divide at the first divide crossing we had. And I crawled under a giant spruce tree and got under there to get out of the rainstorm. I was under there for 10 minutes or so, and then let up a little bit, and so I peeked out. I looked back the way I'd come from, and the sky was just dark black. And then I turned and looked the other way, and that's the way I needed to go, and the sun was shining. And I looked around, just wildflowers everywhere, beautiful place I'd never seen. And I thought, this is it, this is the place. And I found an old stump there, and I got a couple rocks, and I put them by that stump, and that was my so-called monument. I was going to bury my ghost right there. I hung around there a while, and it was just a beautiful place. And then you might say, I rode off in the sunset down the mountain. So I camped that night with the moon, looking out the moon and my little bivvy. And I remember everything. So then my goal was I told my counselor the next year I'll ride that Tour Divide, bury my ghost, and then I'm going to go back to Vietnam. I need to go over there and see if I can find some old Vietnam friends. I'd made where I was the last 7 months there, my job, I'd go off our compound, and I drove a tractor and trailer water truck, and I'd get water out of the river, take it to the field units and the LZ zones, landing zones, and give them water, and I'd build little showers for them. That was my main job. And I'd have somebody ride shotgun with me, and we'd get sniper fire and stuff like that sometimes. But I made friends with the people in Bong Song, in the little village where the Bong Song River ran through, and because I'd go down there daily. And I wanted to go back and see if I could find some of those friends. And that was, 47 years ago or something, a long time ago. And I didn't know, but that was my goal. Well, we never have had much money, so I couldn't afford to go, and I still teach in school. So I went back to did the Tour Divide again the next year, and I stopped. My ghost didn't leave me, but I visited my monument again, and then I went back the third year, but that I'd finally figured out I was going to go back to Vietnam and try to buy a bicycle over there, and ride up to where I'd been.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured it all out, and after I did the Tour Divide, it was the next was February, the end of February. I planned this all out, and Linda said bye to me, and away I went to Vietnam, and I landed in Ho Chi Minh City, they call it now, but Saigon, and I landed there late at night, about midnight, and I made it through customs and everything, and nothing went right for me, and that's par for the course. My phone wouldn't work. I couldn't get a SIM card that worked, and I was directed. I was gonna stay at this bed and breakfast place, and that's what they called it, but it was in Saigon, and I was supposed to give a cab driver the direction. I was supposed to rent a certain kind of cab. Well, I did that, but when you go out on the street, everybody's swamping you and trying to rip you off. Saigon's a city that doesn't sleep, so even though it's midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, there's people everywhere.
Wow.
And a cab driver, I can't speak Vietnamese, not nothing that counts anyway. And so they tried to get me in the cab, and long story short, that's the wrong cab, and I got out, and I got in the right cab, and away we went, and the guy shakes his head. I showed him the address. He knew where to go. When I was supposed to go to this about a 30-minute ride. Saigon's a huge city. And then go down this alley, and when I get the alley, there'll be a sign that had another motel, big flashing light. The guy said, you'll recognize it. But I was supposed to call him and let him know, but my phone wouldn't work. So anyway, the cab driver, he comes to this alley, said, this is it. I said, that's the alley? And he didn't drive down it, though. So that's it. I thought, okay. And so there I jump out, and I've got a couple backpacks.
You asked for adventure, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
And I'm back home, though. I it's like, okay, this is home again.
Yeah.
And I walked down the end of the alley, probably from here to the gravel road up there, and there wasn't nothing. None of my landmarks I was supposed to see were there. And I seen a guy leaning against the wall down there, and I thought he was Vietnamese, and turned out he's from Taiwan, and he could speak English. And I asked him if I gave him my address. I showed him my paper. He said, you're on the right Main Street, but you're probably a mile away from where you want to be. And okay. And he walked back up to me, and there's little motorcycles everywhere.
Right.
And he motioned this kid over, and he could talk Vietnamese, and he told the kid where I wanted to go. I take you. I jumped on the back of the motorcycle, and away we went. And we come to an alley, and he whipped in, went down there, and I'd seen that big sign of the hotel, which was another hotel that I was going to stay in. And then he pointed at the little bitty light on a wall, a little sign that said Christina's, and there's a button there, and I pushed that button. These iron doors open. There's my people that I wanted to meet. Welcome to, and boy, they welcomed me, and they had a room for me and everything. And I was going to stay there 3 days and figure out how to buy a bicycle, and bike up to Bong Son, which was probably 800 miles away. And I was going to revisit my place as well. We couldn't figure that out. And I befriended a couple girls, one girl in particular. Her name was Hong. These college girls worked there at Christina's, and their main degrees are in travel and tourists and that sort of thing. And so I befriended this girl, Hong too is her name, and she kind of looked after me and helped me get a phone and all that. And she said, you can take a train up there. Okay, that's cool. And that was another adventure. I got on that train at 6 o'clock in the evening. But we fixed up a phone to where I could call her anytime I needed help.
Oh, nice.
And
So you'd hand it to somebody and say, hey, talk to her.
Yeah,
She
that's
knows.
what I did. I did that. And so I I rode that train for 14 hours. And that's another whole story, but I'm stuck in a little car with a Vietnamese family, and they couldn't speak nothing, you know, and I thought, man, they'll probably steal everything I had, but they, you know, I was good to go. Dropped me off. The train stops about a half mile from the city. I went to Quin Yon itself, and everybody just jumps off, and then I followed everybody else and went up to the train station. And I seen the cabs, and I wanted to stay at this Seagull Hotel, and I'd seen it online. I'd made a reservation there. I had one of the kids at Christina's helped me out and get a reservation there. And it's like the most fanciest hotel you'd have here in the United States. It was unbelievable. Seagull Hotel cost me $40 a night.
That ain't bad.
No, God, you know. I mean, I could eat for $1. You know, a nice meal.
Wish.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, I called my friend in Saigon, and she talked to the cab driver and took me to Seagull Motel or hotel. And I'm talking to the girl there at the desk and told her what I want to do. I want to try to buy a bicycle and all that stuff. And these bicycles around here no you don't get to Bong Son where I wanted to go. It's probably 40, 50 miles away. And so, but the bellboy, he could speak English, and he said, I take you. I said, you can take me up to Bong Son? He said, yeah. I said, how are you going to do that? He said, motorbike. I take you. I know work tomorrow. I said, you meet me here in the lobby at 8 o'clock in the morning, I take you. I said,
wow.
Oh, well, okay. And I'm all up for that. And sure enough, 8 o'clock, he's down there. And we jump on his motorcycle, and away we went. And we went to Bong Son, and it took us a couple hours to get there. Traffic 30, 40 miles an hour as fast as traffic's going to travel. Traffic's unreal in Vietnam. And when you walk across the street in the cities, you don't look out for the traffic. You have the right of way. They look out for you. You just walk.
Whoa.
They miss you. You don't miss them.
Oh.
You don't want to stop because they might run over you. They're missing you. And so
so you just keep your cadence and you just
keep your cadence.
Stay steady.
Stay steady, and they miss you. They might touch you, but no, it's unreal. But I had to learn how to do that.
Yeah,
the girls had to help me. They had to hold on my arm and everything. And get
Come
me
on,
across.
Hal, it's fine.
I game. I was all for it.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, we went back up there. The only thing that I could recognize was the old bridge, the Bong Son Bridge, and it had been destroyed during the end of the Vietnam War. But that's all that's there. But I could close my eyes and see everything. And then I told him where. And I mean, all the thatch houses, everything had gone and all rebuilt. Bong Son's there, but most of the people, a big percent of the people, weren't alive during the Vietnam War, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are North Vietnamese people because that's what happened. The North Vietnamese probably imprisoned or put in camps. What South Vietnamese was left, and then they come down and took over the land and so on. And something like that happened. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But then I think it was maybe 1985 things changed and the South Vietnamese people were let go and the government changed and they're more democracy-like now, even though it is a communist government. But it's pretty open and so there are some of the original people back there that lived where they used to live. And so I told him I knew exactly the street or alley where I'd befriended this boy. He's almost like my son. He's just 10 years old, but he looked out at me and actually saved my life probably once.
Wow.
And I was going to see if I could find him. I didn't think any of that was possible, but we went down this alley or street, and there was a house where that used to be, as adobe-looking house, and two old people. A guy was 80 years old. They didn't speak Vietnamese, but I had my friend, the bellboy, Mr. Sao. He interpreted for me, and I told him I was looking for this kid. He's a kid back how many years, and that would have made the boy, I think, 57 years old. Said, yeah, Hong, he lives here. We'll go get him. I thought, man,
no way.
That's what I thought. And so here he comes on a motorcycle. I'd say there 30 minutes to this old guy, and I'm sure it was him. He looked like him, but he said it wasn't. But anyway, long story short, I visited with him for about 3 hours, and there was an old lady, and actually she was probably a prostitute at the time during the war, and we finally they said she can speak some English. She's across the street, and it took them about 20 minutes to get her to come over and talk to me. Her name was Lai, but we become friends, and we talked and shared stories, and I'd say, she was, prostitution was a big deal back then at the time, and she had many boyfriends, she said, but she knew the same people I knew. We didn't know,
Really?
I didn't know her, but she knew the people I knew, and I asked her about the River Girl and her mother, and she knew them, and they had a Coke and beer stand down there on the river that we'd hang out
Wow.
at.
So she was able to connect some dots.
Yeah, and she said they'd died, and they weren't alive no more, and but anyway, Mr. Sal, he drove me around and let me mess around, hike around by the river. We did some other things there, and then we went back, and then it was International Women's Day at the time, and he said, "Do you come to my party tonight?" And I thought, okay. And anyway, he took me to his house, and we kind of got drunk and ate a lot of food. And I talked to him and finally taken me back to my hotel. He wanted me to stay all night there.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I
How hospitable.
Yeah,
That's so funny. He just overheard you and said, "I'll take you," and then chauffeured you around all day and then took you to a party.
I stayed there for 7 days, and I hiked all over. I went to a leper village, a leper colony.
Okay.
And I visited that. I just go on foot, I hike around. I got lost a few times. I got took advantage of a couple of times. But I get out of it by calling my friends and talking to them. But I had a great time, and I'm going back.
Did it help?
It helped a lot, yeah. And I want to go back, When I got, and then I went back down to Christina's, back down to Saigon. There's a big poster up when I got back down there. It said, "Welcome home, Harold." My real name's Harold.
Okay.
And,
So who's that?
Yeah, I know. But that's how I had introduced myself, because I had a facial name on my documents and stuff
I got
to
you.
get in
So
there.
you went by that.
And I eventually called myself Hal. I told them, but they thought I was Harold for a while.
Right.
But anyway, they really took me in.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, and everywhere I go, I seem to meet somebody. And people ask me, aren't you scared? And, like even on the Tour Divide or I'm out, do you carry a gun or a weapon? No, my weapon is my smile and my handshake. And I think that protects you as much as anything.
Where did you learn that?
My dad.
Your dad?
Yeah, Dad taught me that. Yeah.
Why?
Well, he
Just by example, or
yeah,
was
example.
Example.
Yeah. No.
So does smiling come natural to you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I was curious. I mean, you have an iconic smile. I mean, you do. I
But
mean,
my dad.
if anyone talks about Hal, they're going to talk about your big grin. Yeah, if you walk up on you and you're smiling ear to ear and you reach out your hand and you're pleasant to somebody, it's hard for somebody to want to have hard feelings towards
I say
you.
it's like a dog. If that dog's wagging its tail, you're gonna pat it on the head. You're gonna talk to it. But if it's a growling, you're probably not.
Right. So you're setting the stage as to how the other person will react to you.
Yeah. And I don't think I'd like to think it's just, and I naturally am that way. I'm naturally smiling, and they see me, and I think when I look at them, I'm probably smiling.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can get you in trouble, but more times than not.
Like, why are you smiling at me?
Yeah.
That actually happened to me the other day, where I was sitting in my car and some guy off the street, I don't know, knocked on the window, and I was sitting in front of a house taking a phone call for work, and I rolled down. He's like, "Is this your house?" I said, "No." And he's like, "I want to buy it." And I guess I was smiling.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it, but it was kind of an awkward situation. I was like, "Well, I don't know whose house this is." He's like, "Why are you smiling at me?"
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't,
Yeah.
trying to, but he kind of got aggressive. And I was like, I thought it was interesting that you're asking me to buy this house and I don't know whose it is. It's just kind of an awkward situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've run the
A couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for the most part, it's in a...
Most part. And you kind of have that feeling, yeah. And I relate it to, like, animals have instincts. And you hear people say, go with your gut feeling. Well, I think really humans have instincts, and I think our gut feeling are our instincts. We're animals, so we have instincts too. Women protect their young and so on, and I think we all have those. So when you have that gut feeling, that's probably an instinct. That's how I relate it to.
Yeah.
So like danger's here, and that instinct kicking in to protect you. And that's how I view it. And I have that happen every once in a while. Actually, I was on the Tour Divide, and I'm in Silver City last year, and I'm finishing up. I'd made it that night, maybe midnight or 1, just through the CD Continental Divide Trail part, and I'm probably 20 miles outside of Silver City. So I got up about 4 in the morning. I camped along the trail and headed on into Silver City. Got McDonald's, got me food, and I needed to go to a convenience store. And there are not many there along the trail of the street and on your route in Silver City. And I stopped at one of the little grocery store, convenience store. There's a line in there, and I noticed one guy, big guy, really watching me. And when I went outside, he come up and started talking to me, really visiting, and he's just almost, first I started answering questions, what I'm doing, telling him the exact route I was going to take, and then all of a sudden it's like that instinct, that gut feeling. He's asking me too many questions. And then he said, are you packing? And I said, I'm okay, I'm good. And he said, you carrying? I said, I take care of myself. Don't you get scared out there? I said, no, I'm good. I'm really good. And so I don't have nothing with me besides.
Right. No, you're good.
Yeah, but
that's all he needs to know.
Yeah, that's all he needed to know. And I said, I need to go. I'm going to finish tonight. I had 125 miles to go. And so I think it's about 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So there was he was kind of a rough-looking guy. He's from New York. He told me everything about him kind of in a brief 5 minutes. But it surprised me. He went over, and there's this new-looking big Dodge pickup, and it had an emblem, silver emblem that said Texas on the side of it. And I noticed that, big Longhorns. And
the Texas edition.
Yeah, and he got in that, and I thought, it surprised me. And there was a sort of vagabond-looking guy sitting right by his pickup. And he got up, and he walked over to me. And I was trying to get my stuff tied on, ready to leave. I kind of like a gypsy, I have stuff tied over my bike. And so he said, nice bike. I said, thanks. And he said, how much that cost you? I said, I don't know. He said, no, how much? A bike like that costs a lot, doesn't it? I said, I build it myself, so I really don't know. I said, but I got to go, because he really gave me, I had that gut feeling again. And so I just got on by that time I had stuff fastened down. I got on the road away and trying to see where I could see the license plate number on the truck, but I couldn't without going out of my way. So I went on, and I got about 5 miles up the road, or a little ways up the road, and that truck passed me. Oh, dang it. That's what I was afraid of. And it went on by me, and you go 17 miles on a good highway before you can turn off on a gravel road. And you got to go 50, 60 miles of that gravel out in nowhere, across ranches and so on. And so I went a little bit farther, and there he was pulled off on the side of the highway.
Oh, man.
Dang, and I had to cruise around, and he had dark windows, and I couldn't see in. Oh, dang it. And I went on, and I got several miles, and here he come slowly driving by me. Dang it. Anyway, I just had this eerie feeling, and so I called my son, and I told him, I said, if I disappear, here's what.
I was about to ask you if you called anybody.
Yeah, at first I called my nephew, checks on me a lot, but I called my son, and I said, just in case I disappear, here's the deal going on.
Yeah.
He said, oh, Dad, call 911. I said, really? He said, yeah, call. And so I did. I called him, and they said, we'll send the sheriff right out. And so she said, don't move, stay right there. So I did, and I waited 5 or 10 minutes, nobody came. I called him back, and I got the same lady, and she said, well, they said they'd be coming. And then all of a sudden a sheriff car drove by, and they did a drive-by, and then they turned around and come back. And it was a lady, a young girl, a sheriff, and I told her the whole story and everything, and she took all my information, and she said, I'll do a 25-mile up and back, and evidently if that guy was still around, it scared him off, and she come back and talked to me. She said, I might have seen him, I'm not sure, but I think you're safe. So I went on and I made it, but
That's why you're safer out in the woods than around people.
yeah, I think so. I've had, usually what I do, if I meet somebody that I have a bad feeling about, the first thing I do is stick out my hand and tell them who I am. And they'll generally, they just can't help it. They say, I'm Ricky, I'm Roger, I'm Angela, whoever they are. I've had women do that too. And I had this one guy in particular, I forget his name now, Jeffrey, I believe was his name. And we were in Helena, Montana, and he said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Missouri. And he ripped open his shirt, and he had Missouri tattooed across his chest. He said, I'm from Missouri, too. We're home bros. And I said, that's
home
cool.
bros.
Yeah. And so he said, I'm thinking about holding you up, but I won't now. And at the time I was riding, my cousin was riding with me. That was in 2014. And he said, good thing he didn't detain us. I said, I don't think that's what he meant. And he was actually, the guy was making a drug deal there, and I was watching it, And
Oh,
he
wow.
did it and everything. But what I said I did, I take their, I ask them, people like that, I ask them if I can take their picture. I said, I document things, and I make little photo stories, and when I get back, and I like to have neat people I meet, and that I've only had one lady turn me down one time. She didn't think she looked good enough. So I wasn't fixed up. But
That's
I take their
that's
picture,
a great idea.
and then I push a button, and I send it to my iCloud, and I've had their picture.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's smart.
I did that on the American Trail Race twice, and I think this one kid come running up, and I think he was high on meth or whatever. I think he thought he was going to relieve me of my bike or whatever, but I stuck out my hand, and we got to talking, and I finally said, I got to go, and he gave me a hug with his one good arm. He only had one arm.
Oh, wow.
Okay, dude.
That's a great lesson.
Yeah.
Those are two great lessons.
But,
Smile, shake their hand, and then take their picture.
Take their picture.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, I do that. And then
I mean, it's self-supported. You're out
I said
there.
I'm
and-
just send this to my iCloud, so I tell them
Right.
I've recorded this. But they like that. I mean, people they like you to be friendly, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, so.
I think that most of us are pretty good, and
Yeah.
and some of us get off track. I've been off track before, and but deep down inside, I think a lot of us are good. And so if you approach them like that dog with the tail wagging, it's hard to go and kick that dog.
Yeah,
you know?
It is. Yeah, I really believe that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, you've done so many things on and off the bike, but this is a bike packing podcast. What's your personal biggest accomplishment on the bike? What are you most proud of?
Finishing the American Trail Race.
Why don't you want to describe that real quick? Because that's even a relatively new race, so
It
might
is,
be worth talking about a little
my
bit.
friend Billy Rice had, I seen where a year or two before it had, I think Neil Belachenko, I helped him formulate that race as well. But I'd heard about it, and I thought, man, that's got to be a cool race. It's like the Tour Divide, only it's from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and nobody ever did it, and they didn't even know, what the trails would be like or anything, and that was
This
one
was
of the deals.
17 or
It was in
16?
2017.
Okay.
You're going to come to different areas that there might not be a trail there, but it's and that's what happened. You'd have a purple line on your GPS, and he said you're just if you figure it out, and you would. One time, I don't know, I pushed my bike a long ways, and just through the sagebrush and stuff. And there's no trail there.
Mm-hmm.
I seen a couple other bike tracks once in a while, but other people would blow their thing up and find a route around it. But I generally went through it, and we went across private land a couple of times. I never had good. Dylan Taylor, he won the race, and he was leading it, and he would find ways around it, and he'd send us how to get around it. But I didn't have connections. I didn't get his, taxes or nothing. So twice I went right through the private land. Nobody bothered me, but I went right on. I followed my line, went on through.
Yeah.
I got stopped once, and the guy told me how to. He said, you can't get through this place, but go up by this barbed wire fence and get through it and drag your bike under and go down along the fence. And I did what he said, and stayed pretty well on my line. A time or two I had to go around, just no trail completely, and you had to deviate around. But when the desert was probably the hardest. I think when I got through Colorado, and that part of Colorado is tough. You got a couple of alpine climbs, and I got sick a few times.
Altitude or?
I got altitude sickness in Colorado, but I overcame that in Lake City. And then my foot got infected. A toe got infected. I knew something was going wrong with it. And one night I was in Utah. I looked at my foot that night, and it was all infected and had kind of red lines up my leg. And so I was kind of scared. I was worried that, hey, I might have to go to the hospital. And I had 180 miles to go without any stops. But there was a place that was off route, only about 2 miles on a big interstate highway. And so I went over there. Well, long story short, I woke up in the morning, my foot was really bad. And I called Linda, and I had some...
About what mile was this into the race, just for reference?
Probably 3,500.
Okay.
I was in Utah.
You were getting closer to the end.
Well, somebody told me
Close-ish.
when I got to Colorado, they said, you're about there. I said, I think my race is just starting. And it's Utah, Nevada, Oregon. That's going to test you.
So it goes east to west.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's going to test your ability. First thing, it averages 100 degrees every day, and up to 100. I think the RSI record is 112, but Oregon was the hottest actually.
Well, that's surprising.
But you just have no trees, no nothing in the desert, and that sun just beating down on you. It's unbelievable, and your water is almost boiling. It seems like you're drinking hot Gatorade and hot water all of a sudden. And you're afraid that you can't run out. There's nobody out there. Nobody. There hadn't, besides the other bike riders. And all of a sudden, I think in Nevada, Utah or Nevada, Billy sent me a text and he said, "Now you're the Lantern Rouge. You're the last one." There were two other guys behind me, and they DQ'd. They took another route. They had to quit. They said, and they did make it to the coast, but they went another route by the highways and so on. And so I said, okay. But
was that a good push, a good motivator? Well, you've never quit anything anyway,
I wasn't
so you
gonna,
didn't need any
no
more
way I was
motivation.
going to quit. But my foot, gave me I thought, wow, what am I going to do now? And I had this zithromycin for my antibiotic that I carry. I carry stuff with me, and so I took it, and Linda said she would call our nurse practitioner at home and see what I should do. And she called me, and I was able to talk to her.
Oh wow!
And she said, "You're probably all right, Hal. You probably need an antibiotic. When next town you get to, I probably need you to go to a pharmacy and get an antibiotic, like a penicillin antibiotic." Okay, but she said, "Send me a picture of your foot. You're probably okay." And I did, and I got a text right back. "You're not okay. You have blood poisoning running up my leg." So that's when I went off route 2 miles, and I went to this truck stop, big stop. And I went in and told the lady I'd had trouble, and there's a picnic grounds there with shade and everything. I asked the lady, "Is it okay?" And the nurse practitioner said, "You should ice that down and take a little bit of time off and take care of it." And so I got some ice in there, and the lady said, "I'll look out after you, the lady in the store." And I asked her, "Is it okay if I went out there and cabbaged one of those picnic tables and slept a little bit?" And yeah. So I iced my foot and everything, and my nurse practitioner said, "You need to put a pad of something on there and then tape it up." And so I did. All I had was Gorilla Tape, and I had some bandages, and I put that on there, Gorilla Taped my foot up. And I'd already cut my shoes. I did an X like that and slipped my shoes open to take the pressure off, because I actually had trouble with both feet. but just infection 1. So I did that, and that helped a lot. About 2 o'clock, it cooled off. It clouded up, and that's the first time it did that. And, well, I got on my bike and took off because I couldn't stay there. And I rode 80 miles, and late that night, I got close to Nevada. I was still in Utah. And when I woke up, I just camped out in the desert. And when I woke up the next morning, the pain was gone.
Oh.
Whoa, I caught a break here. That
The penicillin kicked in.
I
or
didn't
the-
have the penicillin yet.
Okay.
The zithromycin had kicked in. So it was a long next day. Linda had called ahead and said there's a pharmacy there in Ely, and that pharmacist could get me some medicine there. So that was my intent was to make it there, and that was a long, hot day. It was way over 100 degrees. It seemed like all day long. I was running out of water, but long story short, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I made it there. I got a motel, a little, there's gambling everywhere. It's Nevada. It's all about casinos and everything else on the dark side.
You
might
get
say.
married there too, real quick,
Yeah,
if you
you
want.
can do anything there, I noticed. But anyway, I stayed in this motel, and 5:30 in the morning, I seen I had a text from this pharmacist, and I called him. He said, I want to know where he was. I could come. It's Sunday. He said, I'll be right over there. And he brought the penicillin
man.
pills to me and dropped them off to me. He said, that's our job. He said, that's what we're supposed to do. So anyway, I
That's nice to hear.
got it and started taking them, and I got over that. I had some other injuries. I cut my knee open, and I needed to have it sewed up probably, but I just took strips and Gorilla tape and taped it around there. And I stopped at another pharmacy and got some iodine. That cured it. But when I got there, when I finally did make it to the coast, that was unreal. I noticed everybody, the people, I say everybody, there's only 8 ahead of me. Only eight finishers. One of them was a tandem, so there's actually 9 riders. But 12 of us bike started and 8 finished. And
That's impressive for that race.
yeah. But
That's
these
a
were
good-
real
good
people.
finish percentage.
There wasn't no rookies, so to speak,
Right.
in the
Yeah.
race. They were the real deal. And so even the ones that dropped out, they were real. They just
Yeah,
had reasons.
it happens.
Yeah. But anyway,
Was it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no. I told you I like baseball. My idea, if you're a baseball fan or baseball player, the ultimate, if you were, I'm not, I never was very good, but I love baseball and I played as much as I ever could. And I'm mostly a bench setter, but I even coached baseball for years in high school and the little leagues and Babe Ruth and stuff. But if you do make it to the major leagues, they say you get your cup of coffee. That's the ultimate. If you just make it up there. And so when I finished, that's, my thinking was, as an endurance bicyclist, I got my cup of coffee. I might not really belong there, but I touched base.
Yeah,
I had that feeling.
that counted for you.
I just got, I'll never get on a podium or anything, but I got my cup of coffee in that race.
That's awesome.
And I still feel like I'm still getting to drink a cup of coffee once in a while when I finish the Tour Divide and stuff.
Yeah, you get that feeling.
Yeah.
So is it all the adversity of that race that made it such a great accomplishment that you overcame so much to be able to have your cup of coffee at the finish?
Yeah. I mean, you get that euphoria feeling when you finish a race like that. If you don't, something's wrong with you, I think. And that's pretty neat.
So how are you able to not quit? Because like you said, quitting is easy. So how do you not give yourself permission to quit? Because you certainly, you've had
the first race, like I was going to say, and I got off on something else.
That's fine. I'm great at tangents.
Yeah. But anyway, when I was riding with another guy, and we'd left Steamboat, and actually we were 20 miles out by a Steamboat Lake, a Stagecoach Lake, and it was real hot, and I'd stopped there, and there's fishermen, and I talking to the fishermen a minute, and there's a conservation restroom there and went to the restroom. And I carry a backpack. I'm probably the few people that do, but I do. Had everything in that backpack. I had my money, my passport, my phone, everything that meant anything was in that backpack. And I laid it on a rock, and I rode about 10, 15 miles away, and I realized I don't have my backpack. And I told the guy I was riding with, I said, I got to go back. And I left him then, and I headed back, and the fisherman was gone, my backpack was gone.
Oh, man.
And there I am. And so I found another fisherman down by the lake, and told him my dilemma. And I said, I need to use your phone. And he let me use his phone, and I called Linda and everything. I called Matthew Lee, got a hold of him, and long story short, he said, stay in the race. I said, I am. I just got to figure this out. And I'd been riding with another kid. He was the youngest in the race, and I was the oldest. And his name was Drew. And he'd dropped back behind me. And I had the fisherman, after he let me use his phone, he had to take me up the top of the mountain in this vehicle to get phone service. And he said, take me back down, drop me back off where I was. And I said, there's a kid coming behind me. And when he dropped me off, I got out of the vehicle, that kid popped up over the hill, and Drew. And I said, hey, Drew. And I told him, I said, if you let me ride along with you, I'd lost my maps, everything. I'd go by maps. I said, he was about ready to drop out. I'll see you get to the end, because that's where I'm going. So anyway, I had money sent to me, and a new spot tracker, new phone, little flip phone, and we rode all day that day, and got it at Silverthorne, and he stayed with me the whole time, and we made it to the border, and we're the best of friends
awesome.
today.
Yeah. So he was thinking about dropping out.
Yeah.
You had no.
Yeah. He had $7 in his dad's credit card. But anyway, long story short, we're lifetime friends.
Where does that come from, though? Do you have any idea where that? Because when I was talking to Lael, she said that. I mean, just the thought of quitting just never enters your brain.
No, not.
Where does that come from? What is that?
I think my dad instilled that into me.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stories. And he related. I get off on tangent telling stories, but
Please do.
I like the outdoors. I coon hunted when I was a kid. Dad was a coon hunter and had hounds. And when Linda and I got married, we moved back to the farm. I wanted to buy a coon dog. She didn't know what a coon dog was, and so I got an old dog. And then this buddy of mine, he had some puppies. He said, "I'll sell you a good puppy, good dog." And so I went out there, and there's just $25, he said. And I picked out the one I wanted, and he said, not for sale. And he said, I've sold them all but one. And I said, well, which one? He said, I can't find it. And he said he had 9. There were only 8 in the pen. And we looked outside the pen and crawled under, and there's this little runt, sick little coonhound there. He said, that's it. Oh, dang, it's about to die. I said, oh, that's it. And I said, well, okay. And I named him Willie, and I took him home and showed him to Dad, and I said, dang, this is the dog I bought. He said, no, don't worry about that. He said, the trick to that is, he said, you just let him be who he can be. There's no quitting a dog like that. And I remember him saying that. Mm-hmm. He said, just like you never quit anything. Just stay, hang in there, and he'll be the best he can possibly be. And that's what he always taught me that was my goal too. And I'm trying to write a book, and I'll never probably get it done, but my idea is you touch both lines. That'd be the so-called name of my book. I believe that if you're an athlete and say a basketball player, the coach has you run back and forth and practice, and you reach down, you touch the line.
I grew up playing tennis, and we touched the lines.
Yeah, and in most sports you have to do that in conditioning. But a lot of kids won't do that. The coach isn't looking. They won't. I've watched that lots of times. They won't touch both lines. But Dad taught me to touch both lines. He said, you'll be as successful as you possibly can be. He said, same with your dog. Anyway, that little dog, for 6 years until I lost him, he died. But he was the toughest little. He got famous around the local parts. He was And he taught me a lot. And that's my coon dog story, and I'd tell that to the kids. I'd coach kids in basketball. I had a big story when I had a little girl. I called her the hot little engine. She had a lot of other people instilled in her, but she was just 5'4", 5'5", and she reminded me of that, and I used that story. You never give up. And long story short, for her, I'd never seen a kid practice basketball like she did, and she ended up playing for Creighton University, and did great.
Yeah.
She's awesome though. But that's the way our daughter and our son, they touch both lines.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, when no one's looking, touch both lines.
You always touch both lines. If you forgot how many push-ups you were doing, well, start over. Do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you learn through adversity. Adversity is a thing that teaches you.
Yeah.
Hardship is a thing that teaches you. And some of us have life hardships, and some of us go and ride ultra-distance bicycles and find hardships there. But, you don't learn when you quit. You learn when you keep on going.
Yeah.
You find out what you're really capable of.
The next year, we the Tour Divide, it was a big snow year. 2014 was a lot of snow we had to overcome. We had to drag our bikes through Avalanche, Whitefish Pass, and it was a pretty rough year. And I had one breakdown, and I was 40 miles out of the other side of Pinedale, and I had to go back to Pinedale and get my bike worked on and start over from Pinedale. I overcome all that, and I think next year I had a lot of mechanics. Each year I've had things, and then 2016, I believe it was, or 2015 was a mud year in Pie Town. Got in a lot of mud, and you get caught in that mud. You're not going to go from here to the other end of this deck. You got to stay there for about 5 or 10, or probably 10 hours until it dries out.
You just
That happened to me twice. Billy Rice, he was behind me. He was trying to beat me. Him and Lena was riding a tandem.
Oh, that
year.
was the yo-yo?
Yeah. No, this was after that.
Okay, because the yo-yo going back.
Billy's an awesome dude, and him and his daughter Lena, I think she's just 16. They did a tandem ride.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
She was 16.
Lena,
I actually interviewed him for the show too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit.
I consider him a great friend.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, they did that, but they got caught in that mud too. They didn't catch me.
That's the moral of the story. So how many Tour Divides have you completed? And then you're about to leave. You're getting ready to get up for number what?
This will be number 6.
Okay.
I've started and finished 5 of them. And the goal is to keep that, stay in the spirit of the race. I believe in that. I do every inch of the race. I don't, rat on anybody, but there's a lot of people that don't do the route out there, and they deviate from it. And
I've seen that,
they can call it cheating or whatever they want. But the spirit of the race is, Matthew Lee, he made up this awesome race in my way of thinking, and no matter what the adversity of it is, it's there for you to see if you can do it.
Right.
It's different each year. Somebody asked me, he put in this Coco Claims and route that you'll do. For me, it'll be the second day, basically, or the end of the first day when I'll hit this Coco Claim. And it's a hike bike for 4, 5, 6 miles, and it's just nothing but big rocks. And it's pretty cool, but because the road was out the way that we did go, he put this in. Well, a lot of people gripe about that, and I actually talked to Matthew last year, and he said, "You think I ought to take that back out, Hal?" And no, I mean, either way is good with me. However you make it, but wow, that's pretty neat. We're going through a wilderness, and that's what the race is all about. Seeing, can you do this?
Right.
And can you do it in under 30 days or less, or whatever keep your dot blue. You're considered a tourer if you can't do that. But there's people that deviate from the course, and I have people that are behind me, and all of a sudden they're in front of me, and I didn't see them. I'm awake. They didn't pass me, and I think,
well, I know you and I both had a little bit of golf in our background, and it's like if you hit it in the rough and no one can see you, are you going to kick it out a little bit, or are you going to play it where it lies?
It's the same as touching both lines.
You got to, you got to play it where it lies. You got to touch the lines, whatever it is.
If I pride myself on anything, it's I do every inch of the race. if I didn't, it you know,
You know it at the
no,
end.
no. I mean, I'm positive I have. I've done every inch, unless they have a legal reroute.
Right.
They have had some of those, you know, and they rerouted us last year for a fire reroute. But I ran into one place, and the park people tried to turn me around, and I asked the park ranger. I said, I need to go through here, and he said, well, don't tell him I let you go through, but he let me go through. I said, okay. And then I got to another place, and I got up the top of this pass, and I can't remember names right off. I'm getting old, but it's in New Mexico, and it road closed. And I seen a park worker there. They were shutting the whole campground down. And he said, you can't get through there, and the gates were closed. I said, I got to go through. And he said, boy, park ranger see you, and they got a sign that says $10,000 fine. I said, oh, ticket you. No, you. I said, dang it. And I called Matthew Lee and left him a message, and finally I told him what I'm going to do. I'm going to blow my thing up, and I asked one of the guys there, a Mexican-like guy, and I asked him, is there a way around this? I said, I want to come back in around this little spot. He said, there is. There's a road down there. He said, you can sneak through there. So I retraced my trail, went back down the mountain, and come in underneath on a gravel road. Matthew Lee said, that's awesome. He said, you went way out of you traveled quite a few more miles than other people. And I wanted to get to Sylvia's at Cannon Plaza. She's a friend I meet every year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did, and I made it, and I went on it. And then there was another place that said road closed, but I slipped on through there. So, and I talked to Matthew. He called me back, and he said, yeah, it's open. He said, you're supposed to go through there unless I officially say it's not.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I've talked to the forest rangers, and they're supposed to let you guys do it. Good.
Yeah, I love that spirit.
Yeah.
What are your goals for 2019 going?
25 days, and it's always 25 days. I think I can make it in 25 days if something doesn't derail me. Now,
What's your fastest?
27 something.
Okay.
Probably near 28, but I did in 27 something once. I did it. I've always kept my dot blue back. My first year was 31. The second with the snow. As long as you're staying in the spirit of the race and you're with the crowd, Matthew's going to keep your dot blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with 31 or 32 days in that year with all the snow and there was only 40 some of us finished.
How's this year going to be with the snow?
It's going to be real trying.
I heard that it's going to be a pretty rough year.
It could be a real adventure out there.
He's smiling right now while he says that, by the way.
I think it's awesome. I do think I know every bit of the trail.
Yeah. What part is hard for you, and what part do you thrive on, if anything?
If I use the word thrive, I relish or get off on all the trail. I love it all. I like it all. And people ask you what's the hardest part. I think I finally answered that, and usually I'll do a write-up for the Cordillera book each year. And the hardest part, I think, is at the end when you hit the CD trail, probably from Beaver Workstation. Especially last year, there's no water source whatsoever. And once you tank up on water there, you have about 200 miles to go. But you got to finish the race, but you got to go clear to Silver City. And that CDT, you get there, it's a single track, probably, I'm thinking 12 miles, I'm not sure. But it's rough through there. And you get there in the dark, for me, I have to push. And I made it. And I was coming down with the shingles last year, and I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. I thought I'd hurt myself. I'd had a wreck, but I'd had the shingles. And I broke out with them right at the end of the race as soon as I finished. And that was pretty rough. But anyway, I think that's the hardest part of the race.
Yeah.
You'll run out of water and might run out of food.
How many liters are you carrying?
I'll if I can get a water source, I'll put iodine pills or in my water, and I only carry 3 liters. Try to.
Wow.
But in those across the Great Basin in Wyoming and that section, I got a capacity of 6 or 7 liters.
Okay, so you have it if you need it.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
so that was the 2017 Tour Divide, and then right? Is that right? Or
Well,
2016?
last year's 2018 Tour Divide.
28.
Yeah, this is 2019.
All right, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it crossed.
2017
whenever
was
I
ATR.
met you. I
You met
met
me in
me at, or I met you. I met you at the 2018 Grand Gravel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was thinking that you went into the Grand Gravel with shingles, but you got it afterwards.
Yeah, I got it the next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I went ahead and did the Tour Divide.
Well, that's good because you beat me, and I'm glad you didn't beat me with shingles on top of everything else.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the Grand Gravel because that's where I first met you, and we got it was great. I have great memories from that
Yeah.
race because obviously I knew who you were coming into it, and it was my first race, and we kind of leapfrogged each other quite a bit. It seemed. Do you remember that? It seemed like we were always
I
like
remember it all.
leapfrogging.
Yeah, one neat thing about the race is that you can have you might not, and for me, I might not be that competitive, but especially the Tour Divide, there's people in front of you and people behind you. And I like to think I'm always trying to catch those people within 50 or 100 miles in front of me, and I'm trying to stay ahead of the ones that distance behind me.
That's your race.
Yeah, and so you get to race. And the same way with the Grand Gravel. I wasn't in shape to do the Grand Gravel that year, but Billy, how you got to do it, and I'm not going to do it. But he kept edging me on. Come on, do it. And he said, he says he's not going to do it, but he really is. So I said, okay.
He goaded you into it.
He did, and I went down there, and no miles on me at all. But I did it, but you just happened to be the one that was around me.
I'm glad I was
And,
around you.
Then there are the two Sheilas, if you know Sheila.
I do, yeah.
The Sheilas, I call them number one, number two. And, I'm thinking I'm not going to let them beat me,
Mm-hmm.
But and there were two or three others behind me. And Billy said, you're mid-pack. And so I passed you probably the second day. You were camped in your sleeping bag by this little building or something, a little shed.
Mm-hmm.
And I snuck by you. I didn't wake you up. But
Yeah,
then,
you snuck by me the second time.
well, you slipped by me. I was at a C-store, and I seen you go by me. You crossing a bridge, and was at some town. You went on by me. And so you were in a restaurant once the first day when I passed you. But then you went by me. And anyway, but I seen you go by me, and then somehow I got by you. I didn't know how I got by you that next to last day. But I'd got me a bunch of fried chicken at a place, and I'd stopped up in the mountain, or in a
Yeah, you
park.
can't say mountains.
Yeah, it wasn't mountains. There wasn't no mountains. There wasn't even no hills in that
Yeah.
race. But anyway, I stopped there in I think some kind of national park, and I was leaning against a tree, and I seen your light coming, and you asked me how far I was going. I said I was getting ready to camp.
Yeah,
And-
so that was night 3.
Yeah.
It was about 350 miles in,
Yeah.
I think.
But I lied to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for clearing that
Yeah,
up.
and you said you were going to go camp, and so I let you go, get out of sight, and then I quietly come up behind you. I didn't know where you camped, but
I had a pretty stealth spot that
yeah,
night.
and so
Well, I've been wondering. I had to ask you about that because, I mean, that was the one thing. Well, there was a lot of things that stood out from that race, but I remember that. And you passed me, I was like, I was trying to decide because there was about 150 miles left.
yeah,
And we'd both probably put in a pretty good day
yeah,
already.
yeah,
And I'm like, man, it's that spot where it's kind of close, but it's also kind of far.
Yeah.
And I was really struggling with whether or not I was going to keep going or not. And I think you just put that in my head, and you're like, oh, I think I'm just going to go a
Yeah,
little ways
yeah.
and sleep. And mentally, I think I just kind of turned it off. And I'm ashamed to admit, but what it really came down to for me was that McDonald's that's in Navasota.
oh yeah,
I was starting to have a little bit of a rough time, and I was like, all right, if that's a 24-hour McDonald's, I'm going to keep going because I want an Egg McMuffin or whatever
Yeah.
it was that I wanted, and it was closed,
yeah.
and so I wound up camping.
Yeah.
And then I woke up and I'm like, that old dog.
yeah.
I love it though, man. I love it.
I got
It's
in
all in
a-
the spirit of the race.
Got
man.
in about 9 that morning, I think, something like that.
Yeah. And I got in two that afternoon, and that's
Yeah.
that sleep, man.
Yeah.
I love
It
it.
was all-
Hey, I learned another thing from you. I was pulling into a seat store and you were pulling out, and you had your sandwich in your mouth, and you weren't even all the way packed up. You were in, and you were,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Right.
all right, and I it was my first one. I was learning.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
pick up on these little things,
Yeah.
But I mean, you're probably a lot more efficient in the
I don't know, but
Well,
the
more
trick
than
is
me,
to
I was
stay on
slow.
your bike. If
That's right.
somebody asked me any advice, and I learned this from different people. Jill Homer, if you know who she is,
Just over.
um, I remember her saying the trick is to stay on your ride.
Right.
And that is, I believe that. I'm really slow, but I just keep pedaling.
You're
and
good,
I
good
stay-
at chugging along.
as a one place, I kept, this would have been in 2016, and I was chasing, Marty Johnson and I are good friends, if you know Marty.
Mhm.
And so I was chasing him, and he beat me once, and then if I beat him, it's usually because he fell out. He's a good rider. He's stronger than I am. But this year, and one time I was 100 miles behind him, but I just kept gaining, and this morning I woke up and I was probably 50, 60 miles behind him, and it started raining, getting in mud, and I thought, when they get up this, it's called something, Hopewell Campground, I bet he'll stop there, and I just kept it coming, and sure enough, him and 3 or 4 other guys had stopped there. One of the guys' name was Paul and one Mark. There was 3 other guys. So I got there about midnight and pulled in there, and it was raining right down. And there's a little shelter there, and they're in it. And they got their bikes all cleaned up. They'd been there for a while and able to wash their bikes off. There's a water hydrant there and all that stuff. And it was really raining. I didn't want to wake them up, and so I went out. I carry a tent, a little tent, and I went out in the woods and camped, and I got up before it got daylight and got over that water hydrant trying to get that mud off, and I seen him wake up and come out, and Marty looked at me, and I smiled, and he shook his head, and I caught him, I thought, damn, I caught you guys. And there's a guy named Paul from Australia and Mark from New Jersey, another guy, and he quit right there. He asked me if there's any more mud. I said, there's a lot more mud. And so anyway, they took off and left me. But long story short, Marty fell out at Cuba, time restraint or something. But the next day, Mark and Paul, they would just go to in the day and stay at a motel if they could find one. So I'd slip by them in the night, and then the next day here they come by me again, and then I slipped by them again, and I caught them at Pie Town, and I've traveled straight through, I think 24 hours the longest I'd rode, but I always figured I could ride 30 hours, and I don't know really how long I could stay on the bike, but anyway, I caught them at the Beaver. I camped just about 5 miles from the Beaver Workstation. It's a fire ranger station, and there's water there, and I caught them early in the morning, about 7. I got up early, and there they were. Well, they took off, and then they asked me how far they needed to go from there. Well, I'd met them at Pie Town. We had breakfast together. And I said, you need to make it to the Beaver Workstation and to get out of the mud in case of rain, because you'll get stranded and you won't be able to go. They made it that far. Anyway, they took off from the Beaver Workstation early that morning, and I knew they would stop at Silver City. That's you have 125 miles, and that's the last. At the time, it's the last stop you're going to get, and that might be open. There's another stop that might be open if it closes at 8 in the evening. Now there is a place at High Cheetah. It stays open till 10 in the evening, but you can't count on them. So anyway, sure enough, I come to Silver City, and I got there at midnight, and I just knew that they were in a motel, and I slept on. So when they woke up in the morning, I was 60 miles on past them.
Sneaky.
Yeah. So
I love it. Is that what keeps you like motivated? And because those long races can get boring, and so is that like chase and
oh, yeah, sure. I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
You daydream. You see, there's different kinds of, you might say, wildlife or the environment. There's down there's tarantulas, there's centipedes, but there's always something to entertain you.
Yeah. So I hate to ask, but I have to. How old are you?
I'm 70 years old.
70.
So I'll be 71 in September.
Wow.
But
So you're the person that I always like point to as, I don't intend on slowing down. I mean, you're my example of, listen, Hal's out there at 70. He's going to do the Tour Divide for you said seventh or sixth time? Sorry.
six times.
Sixth time. Yeah. I mean, it's really remarkable. I mean, it truly is. I mean, there's a lot of people that are half your age that can't do what you do. So give me a tip. Well, how do you, really, how do you do it? When like my mom is 65 and she's slowed down quite a bit, how do you keep going?
Yeah, I think that, I'm sure I'm getting slower and I'm getting old and things are going downhill on me, but it's like Father Time's behind you. He's the one you're racing. So I don't think I'm ready to quit, or I'd like to think like some old mountain man would say, I'm going to go until I'm just lay down.
Right.
And I really believe that. I think, surely, it's just like an old truck. It'll finally wear out and stop, and I'll be that way sometime too. I know that. But
until then,
until that, that piston breaks or something, I'm good to go.
yeah.
I got a lot yet to see. I still relate it back to people in wars. They're not out there, so we and some reason that bullet didn't hit us or that car didn't run over us or whatever. We should keep it going. Yeah. My buddy Sam Ball taught me this, and he once told me, he said, "How?" He said, when we were born, we were all given our own space. He said, you might as well go out there and take up your part of it. And I believe that. And a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah.
We were
given, just kind of coast through life.
Yeah. And so there's adventure out there, there's things to do. And man, I sure I want my share.
Heck yeah.
I feel guilty for those. The best thing I can do for those that didn't get their share, so to speak, maybe I can see it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You hear this all the time, bike therapy or cycling therapy. I mean, it seems like that's a really important role in your life.
Yeah. Whatever you use, I think it's your interest, but right now for me, it's bicycling, but it
could be a number of things, but for us,
the people you care about. It's Linda over there. That keeps me going every day. She does, and your family and friends. I have some awesome friends, and family and so on, and they keep you going. I mean, man, you don't know how fortunate you are. Well, once in a while, I'm out here in the woods, and I look around, like, God, I'm too lucky here. Something's wrong. I got it all.
Well, it's beautiful. You should have it all. I mean, if you take advantage of the opportunities that you have, and you learn from your mistakes, and you keep pushing on, eventually you get to that spot where you can sit back and say, "Hey, I got it."
Yeah.
I got to ask you an easy one. The last question. Well, maybe it's an easy one. E-bike. Would you ever ride an e-bike if it came to it?
No.
Really?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I can say that. There's certain questions or answers you don't want to give. No, always, and sometimes. If you're answering, I was a school teacher and I was a counselor for a number of years, and I did a lot of testing in school, and I tell kids you're trying to teach them how to take a test, and usually multiple choice. The ones there will be two questions answers that are pretty. You got to pick between two of them, but if it says always or never or no, don't answer those. It's the sometimes and the maybes because those are wrong. There's no such thing as always. And be careful when you say no, I won't do that.
Yeah.
That'll make you a liar. So I won't say I wouldn't ride an e-bike. Then I'd probably
but it's not on your mind right
now.
No,
I'm not for that. I mean, it has its place.
Sure.
And I know hunters use them, and that's pretty awesome. They get where they need to go.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll be me someday. I don't know that.
Yeah. But I wonder if that'll be me one day.
Yeah.
I want to pedal until I can't pedal anymore. But if it's a choice between not being able. Well, you're still pedaling right with
Yeah,
the e-bike, but
yeah.
if you just can't
Oh,
go and do and see as much as you'd like to, but you still have that sense of adventure.
They have their place.
Yeah.
They have their place.
Yeah.
But
I love your attitude, though.
right now, no. But I won't say that I will never do that because
Yeah.
that makes me a liar.
Yeah.
Will. But
Well, thank you so much, Hal.
well,
I mean,
thank you. I mean,
no, thank you for letting me come out to your house and
Yeah.
sit down and talk to you. You're a person that, on a personal level, I look up to you, and I
Yeah.
aspire to be you one day. I want to be out there riding
Yeah.
my bike at 70 and exploring the world and smiling everywhere I go. And so that's a great
Yeah.
legacy to leave. And to show people, like, hey, this is how you do it at 70 years old.
Yeah.
You go out there and ride all
I
over
think
America.
age, it's all relative. It's. I like to think I'm just like the younger people out there.
Yeah.
I like to consider, Lale and Billy and all them. I'm not. I can't do what they do. I know that. And can't's another word I don't. I shouldn't be saying that's a.
You
bad
are doing what they're
four-letter.
doing. You're doing it maybe in a
Yeah.
longer time window, but,
But
you're accomplishing
they're my
the same
heroes.
things.
People like that. The J. Peter Very, Billy. There's so many of them. I start naming names, and some people you never heard of because I look up to everybody.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
uh,
I like to talk to, whether it's a legend, and I know you'll take
Yeah.
offense to that word, or just, there's one guy that was riding the Trans Am, the Southern Tier route, and that comes right by my house in Texas. And, he's just a guy
Yeah.
riding across America. And I
Oh.
interviewed him for the podcast because everyone who does this kind of stuff, it doesn't matter if you're leading the race or you're the last one.
You don't want to think you're somebody because there's somebody else out there that's a lot better, a lot more somebody than you
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
I know that for sure.
That's true.
So-
But we all have our personal heroes and idols and stuff, and you're certainly one of
Yeah.
mine. So I appreciate
Yeah.
you taking the time to share some of your story
Oh.
with me.
Thank you for visiting with me. I'm humbled that you would talk to me,
Oh,
ask me
absolutely.
questions.
Well, I've absolutely enjoyed it, man. Thanks for
Yeah.
taking the time.
Yeah.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I say it every time, but I really enjoyed that. It was a true honor to be able to just sit there one-on-one with Hal Russell and hear everything that he had to say and to be able to pick his brain. One more note on Hal. He has announced that this Tour Divide, his 6th, is his farewell Tour Divide. So I just wanted to say to you, Hal, thank you. Thank you for being an inspiration to so many people. I know you'll probably take issue with that because you're so humble. But the truth is, man, you inspire people. You inspire me. And you do it through doing. You're out there right now. You're on the Tour Divide for your 6th time. And you're not done, man. You're going to keep going. You're going to keep on inspiring people. So I know it's farewell to the Tour Divide, but I know you're going to be out there for a long time doing amazing things. So thanks to you. And hey, man, looking forward to what you do next. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you want to follow the show, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Bikes or Death. And with help from my friend Ryan, the website is looking a lot nicer. I've been putting in, we've both been putting in some effort there. And so go check out the website. It's www.bikesfordeath.com. Yeah, so go check out the new website. Let me know what you think. And you may want to pay special interest to the Patreon and Amazon links on there. Hint, hint. All right. And if you want to just email me, it's bikes@bikesfordeath.com. All right. Now go ride your damn bike.